start off by giving you a little bit of background. Been in my house 27 years, right here in the middle of town. The house was built in 1939. So we inherited old camellias, which are pretty neat. And that was about it. There was a blueberry bush in the backyard. There was an apple tree that was grafted and planted by the previous owners. And that was basically about it. We took the apple tree out because it never bore, cut up the wood and used it to smoke meats and stuff like that, which was really, really good. Citrus wood is just amazing. We tore out the blueberry bush. We put in a huge, well, it wasn't huge at the time, Chinese elm, Drake elm. It was probably 8 foot at the time. It is now crowned out at about 60 feet. It's over into the neighbor's yard. It's over across our roof. It does all that kind of good stuff there. We planted tons of camellias, tons of azaleas, tons of flowers, herbs, all sorts of stuff. We live under a neighbor's 100-year-old oak tree, so we don't get a lot of sun. So we don't have a lot of grass, which means I don't mow a lot of grass. How many of you have a lot of grass? Acre. Riding lawnmower type of stuff. Takes you half a day on a Saturday to. What are you doing here? You mowing the grass on the side over here. Okay. Another type of pruning on here. Let me start off real quick. The one sheet that says specialty pruning on there. Just a quick overview of essential pruning tools, which everybody should have or has or needs to have on here. Basic pair of hand shears, bypass shears. You can pass them around. They've all different brands and such like that. You can see something that'll fit your hand. There's many types out there. There's really expensive types. There are types that are, this was measured for my hand when I was pruning, which is really nice by sandpaper. They make some good stuff. There's cheap pairs that are out there. My advice is get a good pair that's going to last you, that you can use, because you're going to have it in your hands all the time. When I started this job off, I had a really good shoulder and no tendonitis. Now I have a really bad shoulder and a lot of tendonitis. So, ratcheting pairs of loppers and shears and hand shears are out there also if you need to do that. A small little cut ratchets it and it keeps moving down, so you don't have to use a lot of force if you can't do that. They make them left-handed, they make them right-handed, there's no problem whatsoever. If you're the kind that buys, they're really inexpensive, and I'll just go as far as to say cheap shears on here, buy 8 or 9 pairs. If you're the kind of person who leaves them all over the place and you can't find them, buy them with red handles. Because either you can find them in the grass before you mow them over, or you can pick up the pieces afterwards after you've mowed them over. So, a good pair of hand shears. A good pair of loppers. Loppers have come a long way from the old wooden handled loppers that are just heavy. Corona makes a great pair. Search out a ton of different ones on here. They're not that expensive, they're about 30 bucks. Aluminum based handles, nice wide grip, nice wide blade. The loppers take care of anything in your garden that is basically about 1.5 inches in size diameter branch. Okay, none of us have done this before. None of us have taken our shears and gone after a branch this size on a tree because that's what we've had. I'll work it around, I'll break it, I'll cut it. Don't do that. You really injure your arms and you take the temper out of the tools. A good pair of loppers. And again, they will only do about half the width of the blade, half the length of the blade. If you need something that's bigger than the loppers to get something taken off, then you need a pair of pruning saw. Foldable saw, non-foldable, wooden handle, your choice. The Japanese pruning saws cut on the pull. The American pruning saws, which we're not finding much anymore in the garden, basically cut on the push, which means you need a lot of force to push down on these. These guys here, you let the blade and the tool do the work for you. You pull it across the branch and it cuts. And these are wicked sharp, and everything should be wicked sharp. So be careful with those. Those will take anything up to about half the diameter of that. If you need anything bigger than that, you need a chainsaw, and if you're not comfortable with that, you hire somebody to do that. I take it everybody's got hedging shrubs. A nice good pair of shears. The old shears with the huge blades on them, with the big wooden handles that were just so heavy to do this all day long. I've come to drop forged aluminum, which are light as can be. Nice thin blade, does more work for you for less force.
Would you recommend it once a year everything gets sharpened?
Everything gets sharpened even more than once a year. I sharpen mine basically about twice a year when I'm using it. Let's see, hello, I haven't seen you in a while. We'll get some more stuff out here. A good coat, if you got wooden handles, a good coat of linseed oil. What did your parents do? Hot linseed oil on the wooden handles and stuff like that. It's still the same. We still do the same thing. My grandfather did that. I still have his tools. I don't use them, but I still have them. They're just clunky.
What do you use to sharpen?
Basically a honing stone or a sharpening stone on here. If you are not adept at sharpening or you're not quite sure, there is, what is it, precision grinding? No, there's a gentleman on Appalachian Parkway that escapes me right about now that does sharpening.
At the key place.
No, there's another gentleman that does kitchen knives, stuff like that. He will do garden tools. He will do shears.
Razor edge or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Is it the one that's just like off the Parkway on the Capitol Circle?
I think so. That's the one right there. I can't remember the name.
Name.
You guys will win something if you come up with the name on there or whatever. That's right. Precision. I can't remember either. But I've been doing mine for years on there. If you have a grinder at the house, that's also what I usually put to these things to the text. Who's got all the papers back there, the extra papers?
Right here.
Thank you. So a good sharp tool, because the old adage is that you cut yourself with dull tools, yes. Well, you cut yourself with sharp tools also. If you're not comfortable using any tool whatsoever, don't use it. I assume everybody's got most of their digits that they want to use and keep, so we still want to keep and use it.
So is it the corner of Capitol Circle and Appalachian?
I think so.
Precision sharpening and
Don's Shoe Repair. I haven't taken through the Don.
precision sharpening and key.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Don's Shoe Repair also, and Don's up in Market Street area up there. Yeah, he's moved up that way.
Right next to Chico. Right next to Chico.
Yeah. So it's all Henry, which is pretty good. One last thing. If you got a place where you can dig in the ground, an indispensable tool is a shovel. Now, this is what they call a pony shovel. This is what the landscape guys use to dig. The difference between this shovel and other shovels is the way that the shank and the blade are aligned. So basically, it's almost straight. So if you look across here, most shovels turn in at about 30 degrees. And those are great for shoveling big piles of stuff across here. They're really not great for digging because the angle of the handle. These guys here, you put this into the ground and 3 good whacks into the ground and you can get a 3-gallon plant planted in no time whatsoever. What you take with these is, and the guys do down here, is they take the edges to a grinder and they put a sharp. I've got 2 of these. They make them in fiberglass, which are heavy. They make them in wooden handles also. Irrigation shovels or pony shovels. So that's a backbreaker. It's a back saver if you can do that. I'm digging up bamboo at my house right now. I have Alphonse Carr bamboo planted about 20 years ago, and I want to thin it out. So 2 of these, 2 big wedges, and a pickaxe. and I'm nowhere near getting done. So I've done the only thing that I can do. I've hired 3 20-year-olds and am paying them pizza and beer and getting that taken care of. So the next set of things over here, basic tools, are just real quick, and we'll go through and you can read some of these. Between the head shears, a spade, shovel, trowels, rakes. Nobody's raked anything in their yards in the past month, right about now, right? I want to see how long it takes you guys to get yellow out here while I'm talking about all this. Watering wands, any type that you prefer, whatever to water, that's great. Intermediate set, if you guys like to do bulbs and stuff like that, bulb trowels, dibbles, hand hose, assorted small stuff, digging forks, pole pruner with a saw. If you're comfortable enough to use a pole pruner to get up within about 10 feet tops, that's about it. One of those is good. Steel rake, diamond hoe, tote bag, and it's one of those kind of things. On the back, if you've got more use of gas-powered or electric, which I should put these on here now. Head shear. I've got one of the chainsaws and one of the shears on a stick with the articulating head from when I used to prune professionally and do that. That always comes in handy. Blower, gas-powered tiller for gardens. One of the small ones, the Mantises, are really nice to have. And basically what you want to do, the criteria is when you buy it for quality. How it's made, what the quality is, how long it's going to last. You're going to spend some money. Durability, something that fits your hand, something that fits your use. You're not comfortable using a big walk-behind tiller, but you like one of the small little Mantises. Those are great for gardens. Those are great for flower beds. All right, let's get on to this thing over here.
Wait.
Oh.
What is a rose nozzle?
Basically, it's just a nozzle with a fine spray.
Okay.
So I've got old copper gardening cans at home with the old fine spray nozzles on here, which are nice. We don't use them a lot, but they're nice to have, and I won't get rid of them. The new Dram gardening hoses and the wands and the handheld wands on here, I've gone to for about a year now, and those actually have done really, really well for me.
What are they called?
It's the Dram brand. It's down in the garden center or whatever, any of the watering wands or the hoses and stuff like that. My wife likes one. There's about 5 different nozzle settings on one, so we can shoot all the pollen out of the bird bass, whatever, and then fill the bird bass with it.
Kind of a silly question. Watering cans, I just can't seem to keep them. What's your suggestion on it?
I have 2 Japanese watering cans and an old one on there, and they look good, and they're copper, so they're green, and they're going to stay that way there. Honestly, the stuff on our back porch that we have gallon milk jugs that my wife fills up with water and walks out with a gallon milk jug and fills up the milk jug with. And then when those break, those go into the recycle and go from there. Depends on what you like to do, what you use. Watering around our yard basically involves hoses and watering wands, or put a sprinkler on. So my house is old. I don't have a watering system on there, but then again, there's a lot of stuff we don't really need to water. So, in this workshop here, I've broken things down: annuals, perennials, medium, small shrubs, small trees, large trees, huge trees, stuff like that. And we'll talk. There you go. Take these back there and hand those around. We'll throw them at them. How's that sound? Who has annuals? Who's planted annuals so far this year? Yes, and they're coming in really, really nicely now, right about. So how do you prune annuals? Pitch, deadhead. When the flowers are done, pick the flowers off. You walk by, it takes about 1.5 seconds. Water, fertilize, you got more flowers through the gardening season. So.
How does that, sometimes that allows them just to become leggy and long.
If they become leggy and long, prune them back to where you would like to prune them. Crown them or round them down. I've got a lot of salvias in my yard right now. So they'll grow tall and they'll grow leggy, And then by the time they're done blooming 2 or 3 times, we'll cut them back by half, fertilize them. They'll compact back down again, and they'll come up through the garden. Shears, keep hand shears. Fingers are good. There's no problem whatsoever. You're welcome. Perennials. We've all got perennials. I think my cone flowers are now back up, and I think I've got 1 flower on the cone flowers right about now. I'm about ready to take them out of a bed that I have and stick them in another bed in front of our house, where they get a little more sun, which is pretty good. What do you do with those? Deadheading basically is the pinching, cutting off the flowers, keeps them producing all through the season on here. And dividing. How many people have divided perennials before? You take your perennials in the fall. What do? You take them in the fall, either out of the ground when they get really too big, and split them apart. That's where the gardening forks come in. That's where your fingers come in. I should have a good pair of gloves on here, but I don't have a good pair of gloves. You can split them and divide them in the fall, get them cut back, plant them in the ground. You've doubled your plants for the spring. Easiest thing to do. When you have too many, divide them up, give them to the neighbors. Trade the neighbors for plants. Donate them to Goodwood. Do whatever you need to do with those. Keep those on.
Gardening club.
Gardening club, absolutely wonderful. My daughter, when she was young enough, did the kids gardening through WFSU here. This was way back in a while. And came home with a pot of, let's see, it wasn't Cleome, tall orange flowers, annuals.
Cosmos?
See, I've been doing this too long.
Cosmos?
That's it. Thank you very much. I'm going home. We're done. Sounds like it'll come to me later on. Well, we started off with a pot of that. The pot grew into the yard. Really just a free cedar on here. Got to the neighbors. Well, after 20 years now, we can walk our neighborhood within 3/4 of a mile and see the remnants of all this stuff over here. Save your seeds, don't save your seeds. Hopefully you're like your neighbors a lot, whatever, so do that. Small, medium head shrubs. Let's go with small leafed ones first. Let's go with like boxwood, small viburnum, stuff like that. Who's got box? Who's got? What do you do with your boxwoods?
Shoot them.
Shoot them, yes. Good answer on here. We shear boxwoods because of English gardens, whatever. We take the shears out and or the guys that you see, the landscape guys that you see in other people's yards that you look at and you all criticize and go, you make meatballs out of them. They're round, they're different shapes, stuff like this. Yes, I have boxwoods in my yard. Yes, 3 of them around. A small little hedge basically now is kind of square. Divides the backyard to a side yard for a garden. I planted those when they were 6 inches tall to make a small little knot garden. And yes, I didn't prune them and they got away and we got to get rid of these. And we didn't. So. That's right. So a small leaf plant, when you shear a small leaf plant, you'll cut the leaves in half. You'll basically kind of wreck the pattern of the leaves on here, but you're looking for an architectural pruning. Boxwood's right up over here against the house. Nice and round, such like that. Do you want to do those with wide ligustrums and such? How many have ligustrum hedges? You get out and shear the ligustrum hedges just back. You don't mind. You cut the leaves, whatever. That was basically the question that I was asked when I was pruning, whatever. What are you going to do with my ligustrums? I'm going to shear them back. I will either cut them down or shear them back on here. When you take a wide leaf plant and you cut the leaf in half, then the edges of the leaves go brown, they get rusty. If it's unsightly and you don't like it, then you need to prune by hand to take those off. If it doesn't matter to you, go right ahead and do it. I don't want those things. Azaleas, everybody has azaleas. And if you don't have azaleas, that's okay. That's fine. Azaleas, are they done blooming? Just
Well, after the
about.
last frost.
That's right. We may get some for next week for springtime, so that'll be pretty good. What do you do with azaleas? Same thing? Do you shear azaleas?
No.
We take the long suckers coming out of azaleas and hand prune those off. The only time that you want to do any type of heavy pruning on azaleas is after they flower. If they're too tall and too leggy, you can cut them back. Where do you cut them back? How tall do you want them? The azaleas on my front yard are right against the walkway and right against the sidewalk. And they are about 5 foot tall. When we planted them, those were 3-gallon plants. In 27 years, I've actually cut them back hard 4 times. Back down to bare wood. Back down to about 3 feet. Let them all regrow again. When you do that, you run the risk of killing off some of the trunks or the branches. Well, that's okay. The growth around them fills in. You go back the next year and you take your loppers and you cut those dead branches off. So you're renewing the plants. Fertilize them, water them. I'm not going to do that this year. We've already taken the long suckers that run right out the top, single ones, with the hand shears, prune them off. It looks somewhat kempt. Looks like somebody lives at the house over there. Yes?
My dad just planted some azaleas in the garden last year, and they're the kind that bloom all year round.
Mm-hmm.
So when do I prune them?
Prune them basically now in the springtime.
Okay.
You're going to lose blossoms. You're going to lose stuff like there, but that's acceptable.
Okay.
We tend to not prune things when things are in flower. No, I want to keep the flowers. Prune them. Go right ahead and do it. If you're taking off the flowers, basically you're taking the energy away from the plant flowering. It's going to put its energy back into producing leaves. Doing that. So, up to you. Yes?
Is June too late to prune back the azaleas?
What's everybody say? 4th of July should be the end of pruning azaleas.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I prune azaleas up into October, and they still bloom. If you can get to them, now would be, after they bloom, now would be a great time to do that. Prune them hard, and then just maintain throughout the summer. Summertime, you don't want to do a lot of pruning. It's way too hot. You want to be inside with a cold beverage, and that's, you know, and looking at your yard going, God, I did a great job this spring. So prune them hard now, after they're done flowering. Tip them and keep them rounded or so, or squared, or however you want to do that throughout the summer. Let them be.
And this applies to gardenias as well?
Gardenias after they flower, and gardenias are starting right about now. Who's got gardenias? Are they flowering? No. Are your leaves, older leaves, turning yellow now on the stems? It's doing that. That's natural. Before they flower, they drop their older leaves. Most old varieties. So it's like, oh my God, I'm losing my plants. They're yellowing. No, they're dropping their leaves. They're going to get ready and they're going to flower. After they're done flowering, trim them back. Where do you want to trim them back? I've got 3 spindly gardenias. I'll trim them back at about maybe 4 foot tall a piece. I'll trim them back to about maybe 2.5 feet. Fertilize them and let them try and stay as compact as possible.
I've got some non-fruiting holly in a hedge that's probably about 5 feet tall, and it's very bare underneath the bottom. Can those be cut way back? And
Hollies, boxwoods, as a rule, if you cut back to bare wood, you may not get growth out of them. You may get growth out of them.
so prune some of the.
Take them down incrementally, leave green, fertilize, keep your tops that are growing trimmed and tipped. What you want them to do is to back bud down the hollies on you. I have hollies mostly in the shade I've had for about 10 years. Back of our screen porch, we have an old freestanding garage. Remember, the house was built in the 30s. Small little walkway. I want to take them out. I'd like to plant something that's about, maybe keep a little more, I guess, a little more kempt at about maybe 3 feet. Maybe something a smaller leaf on there. My wife says no. The cat likes it because all the birds hang out in the hollies which are fine, and all the cardinals all just sit there and just squawk at her, which is fine. So we're leaving the hollows. So it's entertainment for the cat, and I don't have to prune them, so it's not too bad. We'll go to camellias a little bit later on. We'll go on to that one here. Shearing. Everybody knows shearing, taking your shears and you're basically architecturally pruning, making them round, making them square, doing all that. So basically you've got the different shapes that you want in your yard. Tipping, the long suckers that come up, you take those off, basically, and it'll kind of put the eye back to the nice architectural shape to go along with that. Thinning. What is thinning? Thinning is reaching into the middle of the plant and taking out a branch or taking out shoots that you don't want. You want to open it up for air circulation. You want to open it up to keep disease out. You want something thinner. We're going to walk the nursery in just a little bit, whatever, and some of the plants I'll show you what thinning is. The problem with walking the nursery is when you're looking at plants at the nursery, they're growing so well, we're actually not going to trim them and do that. So that'd be pretty good. Flowering shrubs, azaleas, camellias, prune after they flower. You've still got camellias flowering. Who's got camellias? About everybody out here. Until it starts to get warm, now is a great time also now to prune camellias. It's not going to be hot for a while, hopefully. You're going to sacrifice flowers. When we were out at McClay Gardens, there was a two-step process that we used that I really liked and have adhered to. It was a shearing or a shaping of the top of the crown. However you wanted to stop them for that year. And then it was going in and thinning out the dead, cutting the crossing branches, doing that to keep them healthy, and then fertilizing. I've been doing that with ours. I have a Eugene Napoleon. It's about 20 feet tall. It came with the house. Small pink petal. Actually, it's not like a pink perfection that's splayed as it's open. These are petal upon petal that open up and come out. The cutting came from McClay Gardens, which was pretty nice. So that's blooming now. I have a huge squirrel's nest in the middle of that. That's about ready to go. Within the next couple weeks, I will shear back the top of that to round it, probably taking about 4 foot off the top. Really going to produce a lot of new growth off the top. Shape that on all sides, and then thin the middles of it out, and let that grow. What do you guess?
I bought a house. It's an old house too, and it came with these miniature things.
Yeah.
They look like trees. They're like, they have a big stalk, and then up here they're all. So, but I have one, and it has growth at the bottom, and then empty trunk, and then a flowering big head at the
Right.
top. How should I prune that, or should I?
That one, basically, and you can do this now, without knowing the variety, without knowing how tall it will ultimately get. Whatever grows at the bottom is the stuff coming from the trunk itself off the bottom. Mm-hmm. It's not coming out of the ground and near it.
No, it's this one. It's coming from the trunk.
It's coming from the trunk off the bottom. You can do one of two. Well, you can do one of three things. You can leave it be. You can prune off the top, the whole entire top, let the bottom regrow into more of a bush. That may not be feasible. It may not be what you want. You can trim all that off the bottom and shape the top. It's one of those where it's kind of like a no-win situation. What I would do if it was mine, I would probably take most of the entire top off of it and take it right down to bare trunk and let it re-sprout and regrow. The hurricane this past year brought down. I live next to a neighbor who has a 100-year-old oak tree. We caught one of the eddies from one of the small little twisters up on the top and took part of the crown off and down in our yard. One, I had the foresight. Being from Miami, I've been through too many of these. Parked the cars out on the street in the open, which was great because it would have smashed my wife's car. Took the bird bath down, took all the stuff down. Woke up in the morning to find that the top crown, one of the crowns of this major oak tree, was down in our front yard. Missed our porch by about 6 inches. We got very lucky. You know, a lot of people were not as lucky as that. Took the camellia tree underneath it, sheared off half the camellia, bent the other half 180 degrees down. So once we got light and got enough coffee into me, out came the chainsaw, got most of all of that out, come back to this, it's Rutledge Minix is the variety. I have a spindly half of a camellia on one side. I have ripped branches which we've cut that are starting to flower, not flower, but sprout on the other side on here. It's ugly. It's right in front of our door. It's ugly. So I want to take that out. But we're going to cut that back wholeheartedly. I've actually cut it back to bare wood. We've cut all the sides back to bare wood to about 4 foot tall. It's got a good bottom branching structure, and I think it's going to do well. It's going to take 4 or 5 years. So it's not a quick fix on one of these things.
The drought one, if you can't constantly water.
If you cannot give it water on a regular basis, then pruning is going to be detrimental. But if you can water on a regular basis, we're talking maybe once a week, twice a week. You guys are watering vegetable gardens way more than that right about now. And potted plants way more than that. So keep up with your watering. Watering, if you're going to cut back, fertilize and water. Keep up with your watering on a good daily, not a daily basis, but weekly basis. Should do you fine. Yes, sir.
Native azaleas, is that, are you more with the flowering trees on those?
Native azaleas basically kind of treat more just like a flowering shrub. They more like a jasmine, more like same thing. It's when after they're done flowering, they're going to be really spindly. Trim it back to wherever you want to do. I've got one on the side of the yard. Well, I can't even remember the variety of it. It's underneath the window. After it's done flowering, puts up a lot of shoots, grows up to the window. We keep just taking it back by hand, rounding it out. There's by a walkway where we walk. Do that. Treat those as like regular azaleas. That'll be fine. Yes.
I don't know if you're getting to this or not, so I'm sorry, but hydrangea. I have to cut mine back every year because it shoots out skinny.
Hydrangeas. Who's got hydrangeas? Who likes hydrangeas? Okay. I like them too, and I'll be very forthcoming to you, whatever. You could give me one to plant in my yard, I will kill it. I don't understand why. I have killed every hydrangea that has been in my yard. I don't have a hydrangea thumb.
I have one that's probably about 50 years old.
See, I know people with that. I've had clients with amazing hydrangeas, and they're just wonderful. I can't do it, so that's it. Hydrangeas, what I used to do with all of these is I used to prune back the really thick growing branches. Keep the thin spindly branches on here. It keeps the growth in check and keeps the growth down. You've got a really thick branch coming up out of the hydrangeas. You don't want that there. Prune that back as far as you can prune.
Yeah, because I was wondering if they just get old after a while.
They do. And then,
If you just need to dig it up, because I mean, I keep cutting it, I cut it like all the way back.
right,
And it comes back.
and it keeps coming back.
Beautiful, but at the end of the summer, it's like, it looks like those trees, you know. It's
Right, it's got one little shoot over there.
Yeah.
Cut those shoots off until you're ready to go. But when do you cut them back down to the ground?
At the end of
works for you, do it for you. Why do we need to prune hydrangeas at all? The question that I should have asked first, which I usually ask, is, do we really need to prune anything? Do we need to prune anything? Really? No. Then we're done. Thanks for coming. That was the first thing I usually ask that I don't do. Does nature prune stuff? Well, yeah, in its own way, nature does. But we have yards and we have houses, and we like to maintain order, and we like to have it look good, and we like to have the plants play well with each other. That's why we prune. That's why they call it gardening. That's why you mow your lawn every week in the summertime, because it grows that far. That's why we get out every single 3 or 4 days in the springtime with rakes and blowers, and we blow everything off of, what's going on. And you guys are starting to turn a little bit yellow, which is good.
I have one other question, and that's, I didn't plant any of these, it was already existing in my yard, because I'm sick of planting.
Wait a second, you're not taking the blame for these now, are you?
I'm not taking the blame for any of these. Laura Pedlin, which, the board knows they grow. We have to cut almost every week to keep them in order.
Who's got Laura Pedalum? Used to. That's a good one right there.
But they're now, some of them are now growing on top and not on the bottom so well. So I'm wondering, I don't think I can kill these if I tried. So I'm thinking about just cutting all the way down. But when would I do that?
If you were to cut them all the way down, you got a good risk of the Laura Pedalum not coming back.
That's what I was wondering.
It's kind of like boxwood. Okay, Laura Pedalum grows long and stringy. It's got small leaves. It grows up and out. When I first started working here, Laura Pedalum was new. It'd come in from Australia. Great, wonderful bloomer in the wintertime. Nice red leaves. Nice compact shrubs. We told folks it's a great compact shrub, should go to maybe about 3 feet tall. Plant them under your windows. Seriously, we did. This is the advice we gave folks back then about Laura Pedalum.
So can I bring it back and get my money back?
20 years, it's, probably, you're stuck with it. One of those kind of things. So, little did we know that Laura Pedalums would grow as big as they would grow, and then newer varieties would come in that are even taller. And there's tree forms by the extension office and all of this stuff over here. When I was doing this professionally, I had clients with Laura Pedalum, and they go, what do we do? Do you want to leave them nice and loose? In which case we'll go in and we will thin specific branches to leave them loose and growing up. Do you want them architecturally sheared and rounded? And what that does is when you cut Laura Pedalums, they're top heavy. You'll cut all around the new growth, they'll put up 2 or 3 new shoots from that cut. So you'll have even more top heaviness. So you'll need to shear them on a regular basis. Which a friend of mine said was the racket that I was in. I would shear them, tell them to fertilize them, come back the next month, and I'm year, I've got a job. And doing that. So
So I might kill them if I cut them.
if you cut them all the way back.
I might want to kill them.
Cut them halfway back. Can you cut them halfway back?
Yes.
Cut them halfway back, round them, shear them up, crown them out, make them look good,
I did that once, they came out.
and do that. Cool.
But they do grow like that, though. That's bad. They're not going to come back full on well.
No,
Okay.
no, they're always going to come back and be top heavy.
Okay.
Tea olives basically are going to grow the same way. They're going to grow from the tips out. Tea olive is another plant that basically we would trim all of the strong growth off of. Take a gardening class, take an extension class. Who's taking the Master Gardeners? Anybody up here? They teach you to trim off the dead branches and the thin and the sickly branches, leave the thick growing branches and the strong growth on them. If you do that with hydrangeas, if you do that with tea olives, then you get these huge, long branches out of these trees, and you can't keep the growth controlled. Trim off the heavy growers and keep the smaller tips and you can keep the trees almost compact.
Can you shear the top off?
You can shear the top.
Because you don't want the crown to keep going.
You can still do that, and then once in a while you're going to have to get back into the top and thin some of that out.
Then the big good stuff,
Yes.
so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Who's got tea olives? The blooming now?
yeah.
Yeah, I've got two on the sides, back of our house by our back porch, which are absolutely wonderful.
What do you mean, roll it?
Once you cut the tip of those, they'll put out so much energy that they will just send out shoots like crazy fun. So,
Just how far down?
we'll show you one tea olives when we get out here to tea olives. We'll do that. It's one of the things I want to do over here. Tipping.
What did we decide about ligustrum? I've got these big giant
I hate
tall
ligustrum.
things.
That's what I've decided about ligustrum.
How do we prune those things?
All right.
Or do we bother?
With a saw,
Okay.
real low.
Exactly. Okay.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think the bane of
That's what I
my
did with
sinuses and my problems with my sinuses are ligustrum, and it's always been usually that way. We'll take a look over here. There's a couple nice ligustrums. Do you have it in tree form? Is it a tree?
It's a big giant hedge.
It's a
My
big-
neighbor has one and I have one on the back of it, and they're probably 12 feet tall right now. That's good, isn't it?
Ligustrum hedges, I would shear. Pick a spot how tall you want it to be. Get some scaffolding. Get out across and do.
Is it same advice for pittosporum? Shear?
Yeah, and I'm going to do that with my pittosporum this year also. I'm taking them down about 2.5 feet in the backyard, or back fence, whatever, and round them out. Let them go bare and do that. Let's do ligustrum first. We'll do pittosporum. So ligustrum, you got it either in shrubs that you can architecturally prune, square, meatball, stuff like that. You've got hedges of it. If you want a nice thick hedge of it, shear. Shear the sides, shear the top. I worked for the Phipps plantation for a while, and in their road into the place, they had ligustrum hedge on one side of the road. What we would do with that is, one of the guys with the pickup truck would drive slowly, chain myself into the back of the truck, tie myself in, take the hedge trimmers on a stick that I had out there, and we would go for height first, and we would hold, and he would drive, and we would do 1/8 of a mile of top, and then we would do the sides, and we would do, that's, a day's worth of work right then and there. Hopefully you don't have that much over there. Trim, shear, take them down as low as you want to go. Take them down where you're comfortable with. If you're not comfortable pruning up at 10 or 12 feet, hire somebody to do it. Tree-shaped ligustrum. What do you do tree-shaped ligustrum? Basically what I would do is the same thing. I would shear and crown the tops. Round the tops architecturally. Go in, thin the inside when I needed to thin the inside. Cut the ear and shoots off and do that. I actually like ligustrum as trees. Don't ever repeat that. And don't put that on the camera over here. Ligustrums. Oh my goodness gracious. Alright, let's go with small trees. Young trees anywhere under about maybe 10 to 12 years of age. Anywhere from about maybe 4 foot to about 12 foot tall. Young trees need to grow. Unless there is suckers growing out of the bottom of the base that you need to cut, fertilize them, water them, look at them in the morning with your cup of coffee and go, wow, great tree, let it grow. When you come to the nursery and buy 3-gallon size trees, 5-gallon, 15-gallon size trees, these are still young trees. They need to get established into the ground and they need to take off. Middle-aged trees. Well, it's middle-aged. Yeah, we'll not call the pecan tree middle-aged too much over here. But if you need to get into little larger trees, you've got branches that are crossing and branches that are rubbing against each other. Right up above over here,
Yeah.
This is a great example. I always use this one. There's two branches growing out of the oak tree. One's growing on top of another. One is rubbing against itself. What's that doing is causing an open wound on the bottom of both branches, bottom and the top of both branches. That invites just about everything from bugs to whatever else is out there. If you got something that's crossing, you'll want to cut. Always good practice. If you get on the computer, you get onto IFAS in the University of Florida. They've got some great pruning guides out there. They've got a great amount of pictures. Good stuff to take a look at.
What's it called?
IFAS.
IFAS?
IFAS. Google University of Florida and horticulture. You'll come up with those. Good folks.
I
Yeah.
have a question about young Drake elms. I planted some about 3 years ago, and they had lots of small branches at the bottom, but they're still there and growing, like really close to the ground. Should I be cutting those?
She planted young Drake elms a couple years ago. A lot of branches at the bottom still growing. Should she cut those? If you let the branches at the bottom grow, the girth of the tree grows. It's an old bonsai technique also. Leave the branches grow around the bottom of the tree for the girth of the bottom of the tree. If you want height on the tree, snip those off. Let it do its shooting up first.
They're already about 15.
Trim them off. Trim the branches off at the bottom. Like I said, mine's crowned out at about 60 feet. And the trunk, about half the size of this. That came from here. Yeah, that came from here. When I prune that tree, we're pruning off limbs that are this big now. So, and then you got 100,000 million seedlings, all coming. You'll get out of that tree and all over your backyard or whatever where it's planted. So they didn't tell you that part.
Something to look forward to.
Yes. Huge trees. What do you do for huge trees?
Call somebody.
Yeah, that's right. There's some great folks in town. Take your pick. Call your favorites. Don't know who to call? Call the nursery. The nursery's got a great list of folks to help you out here.
Can I take you back to the
Yes.
flowering crab apples? Are you familiar with those?
Yes. And your question about flowering crab apples?
They're getting just like this on the top, and they look like they need to be pruned because they're straggly. I mean, they're huge across.
How tall are they?
I don't know, 20 feet?
20 feet tall, crab apple, big, stuff like that. You actually need to prune it.
Oh. Where?
Would you want to prune it? Would you want to hire somebody to prune it?
Is that what I need to do? I don't want to hire somebody.
Let it go. It's one of those cases where, it's coming up into a nice maturity. And you've got a nice wide spread on it. Yes, its crab apples are kind of spindly here and there. I've got a spot where a dogwood was. It's gone for about 10 years that I want to plant a crab in the back. But when I plant it, I want one that's probably about a 30-gallon one. Because I'm not going to be around probably to see that thing grow up. I want to get started.
I've got a baby one of those. What do I need to do to help it? So it's not, I see that it's getting really tall. It's trying to grow up past that ligustrum bush.
Right.
Do I need to trim it down a little bit, or how would you handle that?
She's got a young crab growing up that she needs, and she wants to. How tall do you want to try and keep it? Does it have just one trunk?
Yeah, it's got just one trunk and lots
Where
of
does it start to branch?
Where it ought to, I think.
3 foot, 4 foot,
Probably 3.
5 foot?
It's probably about 6 feet tall right now. No, it's taller than me. More like 8.
If she takes the leader from the top and she cuts it back maybe 3 or 4 feet, what it's going to do is spur growth around that and branch out. Do you want the crown to round eventually?
Probably.
Maybe a possibility to do it. Brings me to this thing over here. Should I prune or should I not prune? You go outside and you're not sure that you want to prune or you're not doing the right thing, don't. Leave it. I mean, you can always go back later on and go, I can prune it. But if you prune it, and you go, nah, I shouldn't have done that.
It's too late.
That's it's kind of one of these. I've killed more trees than you guys have in your yard. So
Do you got anything about Chinese viburnum?
Chinese viburnum.
That's not like the fruit itself.
The big snowball? The big snowball viburnum. You got a hedge, you got bushes, you got...
I got one, and I, after flowering, the third off because I couldn't reach the bloom.
Right.
And it's doing nothing. It didn't like it.
Took a third off the Chinese viburnum, and it's not doing very well. When did you do this?
After blooming,
This past year?
yes.
Give it a little more time, fertilizing it. Keep up with the watering. What do you look for real quick in huge trees and a professional? Price quotes. I need to have a tree taken down. Get at least 3 quotes. Tree services in town are good, but they vary. You want somebody that carries at least $1 million liability, which they are all required to do, if not more. You want somebody with a good reputation. Look for that. And their cleanup. What are they going to do to clean up? Somebody can recommend somebody to and say, hey, I use these folks over here. They did a great job. They were expensive. They took the tree out. They didn't damage any other shrubs. Do that. What you're comfortable with. On the back. And then we'll walk. Yes.
I saw the next one was citrus.
Citrus. I forgot about citrus. All right. When do you prune citrus? After it flowers. When does it stop flowering? It doesn't stop flowering. That's right. Bite the bullet. Start about now. You can thin the long branches back into the trees if they're big enough. If you want to shape the tree, you can shear or architecturally shear the tops of the trees also.
Citrus?
Citrus. They'll start to put out new growth across here. If you're looking to, a lot of folks and a lot of citrus that I see, the tops are kind of unkempt, but they're thin. If you can only reach so far to get the citrus, that's where you want to stop your growth on the tree. Unless you got somebody that's, can climb or whatever.
I have a Myers lemon, and there's a shoot that it's real thorny that comes out of it. Should I cut that, or is that the main leader, or?
One shoot on the Myers lemon that's real thorny.
Right.
Have you dug through the base of the Myers lemon in the ground? Will you find the same thing?
All around?
That's part of the rootstock that was grafted on. Trifoliate rootstock. It's not really a citrus, but basically for our area, how can I describe this? Because you've done this before. It actually strengthens the trees. So if you go to old citrus and you find it's basically almost looks like a triangle, and it's got thorns on it. That's the rootstock that it's on.
And they graft it from that.
And they
right?
graft it onto that for strength. So if you've got that growing up out of somewhere on the tree itself on there, cut that where it comes out.
Out, right.
Okay. And
So
you're
cut
good.
it flush with the other branch
Yeah.
where it's coming out.
And then let that go. That's sapping energy that can go elsewhere on here, but
Okay,
that's
that's
part of the
what I
rootstock that's on. You'll find that on Satsumas, you'll find that on Myers, Duncan's, I'm not sure, probably.
Would you cut it all the way back to the main trunk?
Yeah.
If it's coming back to the main trunk and coming out of there, yes.
Now, again, you were saying it's bloom all the time. Well, I still had lemons on it when they start blooming again.
Yes.
It was like, so can I now sacrifice some blooms while I prune? Or?
Sacrifice the blooms. The hardest thing that we do is sacrifice the blooms
Well,
on
we get
any of the
bigger
trees.
fruit.
I'm cutting off potential future fruit.
But you have bigger fruit, is what happens.
Yes.
It causes it to create better.
You have more fruit, they're smaller. Less fruit, they're larger on it.
I had 300 on a 5-foot tree that were this big this year.
Like grapefruit?
No,
Myers
not
lemons.
lemons.
Yeah, but they look like grapes. They're huge.
Just
Yeah.
remember this, and this is free advice across here. 4 Myers lemons, this big, baseball size, makes a 750 milliliter bottle of limoncello. What do you do with Myers lemons? Okay, let me see. You juice the Myers lemons, right? For lemonade, you freeze the juice of the Myers lemons. Okay, those are great across here. Lemon curd, and what are you going to do with the skins? You make limoncello.
Extra.
My mom did that. My grandmother did that. My great grandmother did that. Our family does that. So
Your student over here does that.
yeah, there you go. You know, and basically what we're doing is I've got 3 small ones in pots, which we're eventually going to get 2 large ones into the yard. But from the grace of friends and stuff like that who bring me lemons, they get the benefit of getting children.
On my Myers lemon, I have the thorns on all of the limbs.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, I do too.
And so, but I do get the shoots, and then I cut those back, but I haven't gone
Right.
to the base to do it.
No, you can leave it down at the base. Leave them on the base. I've got thorns on mine also. Just be careful when you're pruning. Good pair of gloves. You know, you're going to bleed pruning once in a while. You're going to do it again. It's just one of those things.
Does it harm the tree to cut the thorns off? Is that going to open it up for?
I would probably not, just because it opens up for disease and infection.
Right.
That's the standard book answer to do that. If you really got a problem with that, it's your tree.
Welding gloves, they
You know.
work fine.
And do that.
Why do they say don't mulch? Don't mulch a lemon.
Don't mulch a lemon tree. I'm not sure, unless it's too much moisture at the base or so. I'm not sure. We keep mulching ours. I'm not quite sure. Satsuma's the same way. Kumquats. Anybody got kumquats in the yard? Yeah. Are they the sweet or the tart? Eat them with the skin on and everything else like that? Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a cousin who takes all of those and once they're ready to go, makes a cake that's absolutely amazing. So, citrus cake.
How about a loquat, same way as all the rest of us?
Loquats, not really. Basically, you treat loquat as, I wouldn't treat it as citrus. They grow
Huge.
yes, and you get clusters of fruit on the loquats, and then you get all the leaves all over the ground. How big is yours?
About this tall.
Ah, that's right. You have the New York. Don't anybody tell her what she's in for.
I just wander around the
Or
neighbor's house.
that's
I
right.
saw it.
Okay.
30 feet.
It's gonna grow big, and it's gonna be a little messy on the ground. But what you get in between all that for the fruit is really decent. My mother-in-law used to make loquat jelly. She had one in her backyard. Pretty good.
Fresh.
And the birds will carry the berries out.
Out.
Give you volunteers.
That's right. All over. Yes.
Back to the Myers.
Back to the Myers lemon.
Do you thin the middle of it? Cause mine's maybe 4 or 5 feet.
Can you thin the middle of the Myers lemon? Do you want to thin the middle of the Myers lemon?
Yeah, because it seems like the branches are,
So go ahead.
it's actually like 3 years old. And it's doing well, it's just that it's just too much.
Too much? Then thin. Use your eye.
But how much? About a third? Half?
Try a third first. Cool. And you'll get growth off of that. You'll go from there. Yes, sir.
I have been using supports on my Myers lemon to support the fruit. Is that fine to do?
Sure.
Because I don't want to sacrifice the fruit or the.
I don't want to sacrifice fruit or the blooms. Then that comes out to the first part about this thing is, then don't prune it. You don't need to prune it. Just one of those things. Give me your address before you leave, and I'll come and take some of those off of your hands. You'll in about 4 weeks' time, then you'll get some limoncello. So that'll be there. You go.
Lots of customers.
Pardon? When's the limoncello class? Okay, here's what I'll do. I'll leave the recipe with Tallahassee Nurseries. It's easy. It's 100 proof vodka. It's Myers lemon peels, basically, and a simple syrup and thyme. That's
A little
all.
bit of time.
A little bit of thyme. And once you do that, you won't buy the stuff out of the store again that's electric yellow or blue. Sorry. Anyway, we'll do
You
that.
want to try it on mine?
What I wanted, questions? Any more questions?
Blueberries.
Blueberries. We're gonna go past blueberries right up over here. Unless, how many bushes do you have? 6. How tall are they? Leave them be. Pick the blueberries. You got like 1 or 2 coming up over those, whatever. When they start to get to be about maybe 3 or 4 feet or so, cut the stalks there. Let the others catch up. You want good blueberry bushes, good 4 or 5 feet, 6 feet. You know any folks got blueberries here? You got blueberries? Any junipers planted around them? Anything that in the juniper family? Nothing like that? You don't get any cross contamination or rust or anything else? Okay, so you guys are good to go.
Plums. I have 2 plum trees, and they're each maybe a year, 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They're young. Coming out of the trunk, I have a shoot.
Right.
Coming up about 2-3 inches from the base.
Mm-hmm.
I've left that on. What is
On a young tree, and we talk about creation pruning on young trees. You want basically one good main trunk coming up to the plum tree. Are you going to leave this as an ornamental tree, or you really want to get more fruit out of it?
fruit?
Cut the side one coming off. He wants fruit out of the tree. It's only about 3 feet or so, right about?
No, now it's actually gotten up. It's about 8 feet.
About 8 feet.
Yeah.
Cut off the side. Peach trees, plum trees, and anybody's picked peaches on the peach orchards, whatever. Main trunk stops at about here or lower, and then you usually get 4 trunks coming out of the peach trees to do that. Basically, what you want to do this year, cut the side suckers. Let the top grow. Next year, cut it down to about maybe 4 feet. Start letting those grow.
Cut everything back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fertilize. And then let those grow out. You're talking a couple more years now, and you're talking about maybe 5 to maybe 8 years before you really get plums. But you started them on a good structure.
What about podocarpus? I have one that's as tall as my house, flame shaped. It seems like Spanish moss has gotten into it. It's got a big dead area.
Podocarpus. Anybody got podocarpus? Good place on it. I think we planted ours 28 years ago. And the parts on there that are dead, whatever's dead in the middle, cut the dead out. What I've done with ours, I have the same thing. Got a nice back hedge of it, and yes, this weekend I will be taking it 2 foot down and pushing it back off the back patio. I've got a big, one of them died. So basically what we've done is we planted a new one in the middle. And if you've got a big hole in the middle or something like that, get a 3-gallon plant, push it right back in the middle. You do that. And they're starting to yellow. Leaves are starting to yellow now. They're starting to lose their older leaves, and starting to put on some new growth. Yeah, now's a good time.
I have a chased tree that's about 3 or 4 years old. It was small when I planted, so it's got a lot of branches.
Right.
Can I start taking some of those outside ones off to kind of train it to be?
She's got a Vitex. Did you see the one in the parking lot?
I didn't.
Is it still here? It's a huge one in the parking lot. Well, when do you want to prune? How tall is that again?
It's probably 4 feet, 4.5 feet.
Leave it be.
Okay.
Let it grow. Let it get some growth on it.
Before I start trying to train.
before you start trying to train it. Beautiful purple. Is it purple or white?
Purple.
Purple. Beautiful purple flowers. Love them on here, which are good. Yes, ma'am.
Question. I have 2 pear trees and I've never done anything with them. They're just maybe a few feet taller than I am at this point, but they only get tiny, tiny little pears. And if anything, I always think, well, if it was bigger fruit, it would be better for the birds. Because I don't have time to go out there and play with it. Do I need to trim that back or something? Would that help?
We're talking ornamental pear or Bradford pear, or are we talking?
I have no idea. I know that most of the year, one year my neighbor came over and said, you haven't done anything with this. Tore out some branches, and I said, what are you doing? And those that he did tear out, all around it, got regular, normal sized pears, and the birds love them. And I don't know what he did.
Without knowing what type of pear, there are oriental pears that grow here.
Right.
There are the native, what we call sand pears, the old hard baseball rock ones that make the best pies out of.
Great jams.
Great jams on there. And then there's the Bradford ornamental pear that's here. Now the Bradford once in a while will put out small stuff, but
this is yearly that it puts out these tiny things, and it's because I haven't taken care of it.
Take a cutting of one of the tips of the branches with the leaves on it.
Okay.
Take it about maybe 8, maybe 10 inches if you can do.
Okay.
Bring it here to the nursery.
All right.
Let the guys here at the nursery identify it, tell you what kind it is, what's going on, and ID what it is. Without knowing whether or not it's an edible pear or not, 2 different things. The Bradford pears that we have grow huge. We let them go. Don't plant them anywhere near anything.
Is that a sand pear, Bradford?
No, the sand pear is the old.
Yeah, I know what it is.
Yeah. There was 1 or 2 back here on the nursery, and I'm not sure if there are still any here that we used to pilfer the fruit off of.
Now, how do you prune that?
How do you prune one of the old sand pears? My wife worked at Hartsfield Elementary for many years, and in the middle of the 2 classrooms, there's a huge sand pear that had grown so big. One year I came in with a chainsaw, and I took it back to one main trunk all the way down, cut it at about a 30-degree angle, and let it grow. Heard for a year, everybody complained I'd killed the tree. Okay, at the end of that year, it put out 3 branches, each at about 10 foot long. Then those back that year to 2 branches and at about 4 feet. The next year, it doubled, and it doubled, and it doubled, and it doubled.
So you're saying just prune it, basically?
They grow tall, they grow spindly, they grow straight up and down.
So you don't cut the top?
If you have to,
Top,
wherever you can get to the pears. When you can't get to the pears, that's where you want it to stop. That's all. Yeah.
Buy sand pears anywhere?
I don't think you can, unless you may want to. The guys maybe at Just Fruits, but I don't know. If you haven't been, Nursery's a good, wonderful place here. They've got an amazing variety. There's Just Fruits down in Medart. The guys, that's all they do. They do some ornamental stuff on it. And they got some varieties that you won't find, which are pretty cool. Yes? A honeybell. Yes. Honeybell orange, or maybe an orange on there. If you've got honeybells up here, it's getting warmer in climate, whatever. They may do okay. Have you gotten fruit off of it?
Oh yeah, it's great.
My
I think that's what it is. It's kind of
sister, brother-in-law have one in West Palm, whatever. It's one of the last ones that are on their property, which are great. Tree is planted in a pot and it leans. Can I prune it to make it go upright on the side up over here? Yeah, you can do that. Can you, how tall is it? Probably 15 feet. A little too large, what I was going to suggest. If it was smaller, I would have suggested your wonderful favorite pruning tool around here. Basically of undercutting around the drip line and undercutting down on the one side that it's leaning and prop it and push it back up that way. 15 feet, it's in the ground, it's not going anywhere. Prune it so it visually comes back. So if it's leaning this way, is it putting a lot of branches out this way to counterbalance? You'll see that in trees. You'll see that in trees that lean. Once something leans one direction, whatever, it'll put off another set of branches and another to counterbalance back. Shape it the way you want to shape it.
What's the drip line?
The drip line is basically right out where the edge of the branches go. So the drip line on this tree over here is huge, out past the end of the oaks.
And how deep would you need to do that shovel?
On smaller trees that you planted on here, this guy around the drip line, straight down, like you're going to dig it up.
And what do you call smaller?
Anything that you can move.
Okay.
When they get that large, we use tree spades, the big powered tree spades to move some of the larger things on. So if it's within the drip line or right around the drip line, that's basically where they say a lot of the major feeder roots are, but they go a lot further. I mean, feeder roots go out miles, especially on something like this. So if you don't need to do anything like that, that's pretty good. What I want to do is walk real quick. Yes, one more question. Oh, crepe myrtle. Okay. Who's crepe myrtles?
Not anymore.
I'm going to get on my soapbox right about now. I'm going to get on my soapbox because this is the one. Yes. Uh-huh. Move your walkway. Yes. Yes. You're stuck right about there. She's got a planter next to a walkway. The roots are coming up, and it's starting to make the walkway go this way. If you cut the top of that down, it's going to put so many shoots up around the bottom that you're.
Would you just cut it down altogether after 50 years? Dig it up? Or?
Now, do you want true? Okay. Do you cut it down after 50 years? Whatever. What's? I'm gonna be really harsh. What's a weed?
I'll just leave it.
A weed is something in a place where you don't want it. It comes a time too when you got to sit there and say, do I really want to put up with this? Do I want what it is? Can I change anything around it without? I'm taking up my crepe myrtles after 30 years. The old Tuscarora.
I had dianthus. You mentioned about dianthus. Can I separate those? There's one or two died here, but the others have been beautiful all winter. Absolutely gorgeous all winter.
Mine is still blooming, right about now.
Low growing. There's a low growing. I have two kinds.
We're going to go see some of these right here. What I want to do is walk through. Let me do this.
You didn't go on your soapbox.
Oh, my soapbox. Sorry, crepe myrtles. All right. We're going to see a hard pruning technique up in the front here of crepe myrtles. You've noticed around town, because none of us do this, is hack them back to 1 or 2 feet or less above the main trunk every year in the same spot.
Crepe myrtle.
Crepe myrtle. That's what it is over here. Crepe myrtles are meant to grow. The one out in the front of the property here on Thomasville Road that blooms white, the Natchez, is probably one of the best examples of crepe myrtle anywhere around. Amazing. Let them grow. As they're young trees, let them grow up, let them grow out.
So the shoots at the bottom that spring up, just let them.
If you want a single trunk tree, or you got a couple multiple trunks, and the small little shoots at the bottom, trim those. Just trim those back. They're grown into single trunk or planted into single trunks. When you buy 3-gallon ones here, there's 3 single trunks in one to grow as a cluster. One on the left side of my walkway has got 5. The one on the right side had 6. That one died mostly back from disease. We're going to take the other one out. That's where my citrus is going to go on here. Is the other one healthy? Yes, it's healthy. It's 27 years. It's time for it to go. I want something different.
Can you thin those up? You can thin them, right?
You can thin crepe myrtles, and you can tip crepe myrtles. Basically, as they get big enough, you want crepe. Let's start here. Crepe myrtles anywhere from about maybe 15 to 30 feet tall. A good, and I'll show you a couple good examples. A good thing you want is a clear trunk. Maybe on when the height is about 30 foot tall, you want maybe about 10 feet of clear trunk. If you can get that. Then you want your primary branches to branch. From those primary branches, a good ratio is about maybe 3/4 of that. You want your secondary branches to branch. You want it to keep coming out and branching until it gets down to the fine little tips. Take a look at the natches out there. We'll get time, we'll walk through and we'll do that.